We're ready to go, Alan.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and it's 9:01. And before we start, I'll just make this announcement. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. Thank you very much. And first of all, we'll have the adoption of the agenda. Who's moved and second that?
We have Member Quinn and Member Stokes.
Okay. You've seen that. All those in favor, please. That is carried. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none. The adoption of the minutes,
have
and that is by
Chair Edwards, I
yes.
item 11. I have a
Okay.
conflict of interest.
Okay, very good. Okay.
And can I ask the Member Brown to identify the reason for the interest?
I know both parties in that, those in favor of and those opposing it. So
Thank you.
Okay, so now the adoption of the minutes, who has moved it and who has seconded it? Kitty?
That is Member Bridgman and Member Brown.
Okay, any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. And the first application is B2723 ML Grant, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I think Ms. Babington needs to give her
Oh, that's right.
remarks.
Sorry, yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Kitty.
Thank you, Emily. Or Ms. Crowder. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's required that I make a few statements and then I'll explain the hearing procedures. This electronic hearing is being held in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The members of the Committee of Adjustment present are Alan Edwards, Barb Bridgman, Ruth Ann Brown, Lisa Grogan Green, Joe Quinn, and Sean Stoke. I confirm we have a quorum. I can also confirm that senior staff and planning staff are present. Public input on the September 11th, 2023 agenda was invited at the following email address, planning@muskokalakes.ca. Now I will explain the hearing process. The planner will provide an explanation and purpose of the application and the date the notice was circulated and planning staff's comments. All internal and external submissions have been provided to committee members by Friday, September 8th, 2023. The planner will present any submissions received after that date. The committee will then hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent if they wish to add any information or to substantiate their proposal. Please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. The committee will hear from those in support of the application and those in opposition to the application. Again, please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes unless otherwise permitted by the committee. If you are here to speak on an application, please wait to raise your hand in Zoom until the planner presents the relevant application. The committee will then hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent to respond to any questions or concerns raised. The committee will then have the opportunity to ask questions. The committee will debate the application and make a decision based on the information presented at the hearing. Please note that the effect of written and oral submissions on decisions for consent and minor variances and the reasons for the minor variance decisions are both required under the Planning Act, and motions are pre-populated with standard wording. However, the committee may decide to add reasons and/or effects to the standard wording after voting on a decision. Motions have also been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. The motions are automatically written in the positive to assist in completing decisions as opposed to writing out each resolution. This does not in any way mean an application is going to be approved. When it comes to a vote, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded. This is not considered a recorded vote. It must be noted the chair has a vote on each application and can participate in the discussion. There's a 20-day appeal period from the date of the decision. Building permits are not available until after the appeal period and if no appeals are received. And lastly, please take down the pink notice signs that were posted on your property to advertise today's meeting. Thank you. And just a note to the chair, I will be emailing you a copy of the draft resolutions in a momentarily. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, Ms. Bevington, just give the motions to Councillor Bridgman or and then she can read them. It'll be easier because I'm on Zoom. I'd have to go out of it and back in, so that's fine. Thank you. And the first application is B 2723 ML Grand, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Just going to queue up my presentation. Okay. Thank you, Chair Edwards. Good morning, members of committee. The first application to be heard is consent application B 2723 ML in the name of Grand. The subject lands are known municipally as 1447 Foreman Road, Unit 1. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 33 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to sever a portion of the parent lot and to add it to an abutting lot to the south in the same ownership. The application constitutes a change in common lot lines and will eliminate a dock encroachment. Through this application, an existing garage and an existing sleeping cabin with attached sun deck will be conveyed to the benefiting lot. The original consent sketch that you can see in the agenda package has been revised as shown on the screen. This revised sketch indicates a right-of-way over a corner of the severed lot in favor of the retained lot. The right-of-way is highlighted in yellow on the revised sketch. Additionally, the original consent sketch illustrated a lot configuration that would create a non-compliant side yard setback between the lot line nearest the garage. So I was just highlighting that here on the screen. The revised consent sketch before you amends the lot configuration to adhere to the minimum required side yard setback. Staff have recommended a condition be imposed to this effect. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 18 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from the District Municipality of Muskoka, Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, and Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, all stating no objection to the application. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to standard conditions of consent, and that the lot line nearest the garage on the severed lot be adjusted to achieve compliance with a 15-foot interior side yard setback requirement. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Okay, and we have Mr. Fawner coming in, so would you like to say anything, Mr. Fawner?
Yes, I think you know that I usually do. Thank you, Chair Edwards. Steve Fawner, Northern Vision Planning Limited, 109 Meadow Heights Drive, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L 184. I'm representing Rosemary Grant in this particular application, and I'd like to thank Emily for her brief presentation and her report. I would first like to say that I'm home. I've tested positive with COVID, and I'd like to thank Township very much for having these hybrid meetings and continuing with them, because I do know of another municipality in Muskoka where I wouldn't be able to attend today. So because they only have in-person meetings. So anyways, I'd like to just express that gratitude to the township. If I could have my PowerPoint presentation, please, that would be great. And I can go through it quickly. Thank you. Next. Yeah, it's this is an interesting application as to how it came about, because it came about from the sale of what is basically the retained lot. It's a separate lot, or thought to be a separate lot, with its own assessment roll number, its own PIN number. This is a property was recently rezoned out of commercial, but found during the sale that in fact there's a second tier lot, if I can call it that, is actually attached to this property. So that's what we're severing off. We're also severing off a wedge at the waterfront as well. Next. So this may be hard to see. This is a current configuration. If you follow the sort of dark lines, you'll get the existing lots. And I'll maybe show that clear in just a moment with the old surveys. Next. And this is the application drawing that was submitted with the application with the severance. Next. So this is the northerly lot, I'll call it. This has, as I say, a separate assessment roll number, separate PIN number. We had always thought that it was a separate lot, and my client had that was her understanding too. And she's actually currently going through purchase and sale of this property. So it was a shock to her to find out that there were additional lands. Next. And the additional lands are shown as part 1, 2, and 3 on this particular survey. You could potentially call it a second tier lot, but it is attached to the lot to the north. Rosemary also owns part 4, 5, and 6, which is immediately to the south, and that's the abutting or benefiting lands in this case. Next. And this is the severance sketch, and Emily went over a revised one, which we're happy to go with, and that would actually move the lot line 15 feet from the frame garage that's there. Next. And this is the dock in question, and this is basically roughly the severed frontage, if I can call it that, 61 feet. Next. And where the red ribbon is on that tree is roughly the new side lot line. It's just over 15 feet from the dock. Next. And this is the stake that is currently there, and you can, and I'm roughly in line with the lot line, and you'd see that it almost would touch that dock that's out there. There is an encroachment into the side yard, definitely, and that will be corrected in this application. Next. And this is the dock at the shoreline in question that Rosemary would like added to the abutting lot. Next. And this is just showing again back from the shoreline. This is roughly the severed lot and the going down to the water. Next. And this is the sleeping cabin that's been mentioned and noted on the severance sketch. Next. And again, the sleeping cabin. Next. And the garage that's been talked about. And you can actually see the stake right there by the tree in the bottom right-hand corner. It's currently right close to the lot line. Next. And this is the dwelling on the retained lot. Next. The front of the dwelling on the retained. Next. The dock on the retained. Next. Excuse me. And this is the dwelling taken from the dock on the abutting lot. Next. And this shows the dock structure currently on the abutting, but even once we do the lot addition and add the width of the new dock, if I can call it that, we're still within the maximum 25% frontage coverage. Next. And this is that dock system that's there on the abutting lot. Next. So I mentioned the background in terms of the sale of the property. We do have a lawyer's letter that did accompany the application that verifies the ownership subject to the application. Next. And the owner would have preferred to have recreated that second-tier lot, but I did indicate that there would be an official plan conformity problem with that. And the resultant lots do conform to the official plan and comply with the zoning bylaw. Thank you. Next. And again, setbacks, we can move the line 15 feet from the garage, and it will be 15 feet from the existing dock. Next. And I think I've gone through it quick enough. I don't have to repeat myself with the conclusions. So I'm hoping everyone understands the application. Again, it is a lot addition is really what it boils down to, and it does conform to the OP and zoning bylaw. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Connor. Actually, I'm here for the same reason on Zoom because I have COVID as well. So, and that's so it's nice that you could join us by Zoom. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application?
There's no one.
Anyone in opposition to this application?
No one.
Are there questions from the members? Seeing none. Member Bridgman, please read the resolution.
Moved by Member Grogan Green, seconded by Member Stokes. Be it
Excuse
resolved.
me, sorry, I'm so sorry. Somebody has raised their hand. I believe there is somebody here to speak to the application.
Okay. Would you bring them in, please? And would you state your name, address, and postcode, please?
Good morning. My name is Derek Girdman. I'm at 1425-2 Foreman Road, Port Carling, POB 1JO. Good morning to everybody. Thank you for allowing me to talk this morning. Mr. Farner, I have a couple questions. I did not receive the application. I don't know why I never got it, but I realized a week ago when I was going for a walk in the neighborhood, I'm the neighbor right next to Rosemary Grand. What I want to understand from the drawings, thank you for the explanation for the drawings. What I want to understand was the property, I believe, was up for sale because I looked at the property myself, and I believe it was 200 and something feet in width for you can build a single boathouse. My question to you, Mr. Farner, based on the application now, because I have not read all the documentation, this is the first time I'm seeing this and reviewing it. Thank you for the detailed explanation. I understand that with this obviously application, the frontage is going to be larger. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you. And through the chair, it depends on, I believe, if you're the property owner immediately to the north, then in fact, the frontage of the retained lot, which abuts you, is actually being reduced by 61 feet. It's being shorter, but it still complies with the minimum 200 feet of frontage. They can only build a single-story boathouse on that property. If you're concerned about a two-story boathouse, they can only build a single-story boathouse on that property, the retained lot.
Thank you very much, because I wanted to get a clear understanding. Also, as well as the location of the boathouse, based on the application, is there any part of the governance and part of the laws? Can you explain that to me a little bit, where the boathouse will be located? Thank you for those pictures. Those pictures are very, very helpful.
Yes, thank you. And through the chair, there's no boathouse being proposed on the property. All there is the current deck, I'll call it deck/dock at the shoreline. That's probably the logical location for a future boathouse, but there's nothing planned. I don't know what the future owner has in mind for that, but I would suggest that would be the location. And that, I don't have the setback in front of me, but that's located pretty much in the middle of the frontage of that lot. So I wouldn't suspect that the boathouse is going to be of great concern to the property to the north. It'll more than comply with minimum setbacks.
Thank you very much. So really, they can only build a single boathouse. That's what, if they in the future, if they decide to do that.
Single story in height, that's correct. That's correct, yes. It may be 2 slip in width, but it can only be single story in height and no living accommodation.
Thank you very much for the explanation. Very much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Okay, I will ask again, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support or opposition to this application? Seeing none. Member Bridgman, would you read the resolution, please?
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Moved by Member Grogan Green, seconded by Member Stokes. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B/27/23/ML Grand, provided the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, that a satisfactory registerable description of the severed lot together with any required rights of way or easements be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that a legal undertaking be submitted to confirm that the severed lot will merge in title to the benefiting lot upon registration of the transfers deeds, which may include canceling consent if necessary. 3, that the lot line nearest the garage on the severed lot be adjusted to achieve compliance with a 15-foot interior side yard setback requirement. And 4, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the retained and severed lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal and that any problems identified with any existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. Kitty, do I need to read the rest of this? The application conforms with the required. I've never seen this on a motion before.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
And
okay.
Mr. Chair, may I just respond to the speaker's comments about the notice? If he was the adjacent property owner, he would have been notified. Often the property owners have city or even out of provinces addresses, so the notice may have been delayed, but I will follow up with the speaker just to confirm that he did receive notice.
Great,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Much appreciated.
Okay, we've heard the resolution. All those in favor? And that is carried. And the next application is B 282923ML, and that is him, Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is consent application B 282923ML in the names of MacLennan and Thomas. The subject lands are known municipally as 1523 Fish Hatchery Road, Units 6 and 9. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on pages 76 to 79 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to grant rights of way over parts of an existing private road known as 1523 Fish Hatchery Road, which traverses the MacLennan and Thomas properties in favor of the Munn property. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 18 days in advance of this meeting, and 4 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from the District Municipality of Muskoka, Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, Sandy Boss, the Township Septic Inspector, and Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, all stating no objection to the application. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to a standard condition of consent. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in support of this application, the owner or an agent?
No.
I don't
No, is there
see
anyone wishing to-
anybody, you know.
Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application?
No.
Are there questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none. Member Bridgman, would you read the resolution, please?
Okay, moved by member Grogan Green, seconded by member Stokes. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B/28/29/23 ML Thomas and MacLennan, provided the following condition is fulfilled: that a satisfactory registrable description of each severed lot right of way be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the reference plan. That's it, Chair Edwards.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Okay. The next application is B 303123 ML, and that is Ms. Mulholland.
I just need a minute to get my presentation up. Thank you, and through you, Chair. Good morning to you and good morning, members of committee. The next application to be heard is consent applications B 303123 ML in the names of Minett and Foegele. The subject lands are not assigned municipally for the Minett property and known municipally as 1805 Peninsula Road, Unit 150 for the Foegele property. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketches on page 84 and 85 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to grant rights of way over parts of an existing private road known as 1805 Peninsula Road, also known as Riverdale Road, which traverses the Minett and Foegele properties in favor of the Carmi and Pereira property. I would note to committee that the road further on from the subject lands are marked as a township road. However, Riverdale Road is a fully private road. I have discussed this with the Secretary Treasurer, Ms. Bavington, and this will be corrected in the consent sketches included with the notice of decision. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 15 days in advance of this meeting, and 4 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from the District Municipality of Muskoka, Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, and Sandy Boss, the township septic inspector, all stating no objection to the application. Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, stated that as the right-of-way is being granted on a private road, it is not maintained by the township nor required to be constructed or maintained in accordance with township standards, and emergency services may be limited or unavailable via the proposed road access. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the applications be approved, subject to a standard condition of consent. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mulholland. And is there the agent or owner here to speak on this?
Yes, Bernard Keating is here as the agent.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Keating. Please start with your name and address. Mr. Keating, you're on mute. You're on mute. You're still on
No,
mute.
you're still on mute.
How about that?
That's good. Thank you.
That's good.
My apologies. So Bernie Keating is my name. I'm counsel for, acting as agent and counsel for Ms. Minett and the Foegeles as well. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There seems to be a significant delay in the voice that
Because you're watching it on the YouTube channel. You're watching it on YouTube instead of,
Oh, I see.
yeah, so turn off the YouTube and just do the Zoom.
How, is that better?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. So I won't repeat what I've said, and I apologize for the problems. I'm here to answer questions. The presentation of Ms. Mulholland was accurate. This is an historical use of the Peninsula Road for access for quite a few cottages on that peninsula. Essentially, this application is to legalize and register the right-of-way that the current owners are using and that past owners have used for decades and decades. Hopefully it meets with the committee's approval. If you have questions or concerns, I'm here to answer them.
Can you please just confirm your name and your address, please, mailing address?
Sure. My name is Bernard Keating. My address is 14 Ontario Street, Bracebridge, Ontario. Postal code is P1L2A7.
Thank you.
I have no further comments.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application?
I don't see anybody.
Other questions from the members? None? Member Bridgman, would you please read the resolution?
It's moved by member Grogan Green, seconded by member Stokes. Be it resolved that consent be granted for applications B/30/31/23 ML Minett and Foegele, provided the following condition is fulfilled: that a satisfactory register roll description of each severed lot right of way be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the reference plan. That's it.
Okay, any questions or comments? All those in favor? And I believe that is carried. Thank you. And the next application is A3423, and that is Ms. Darling.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A3423 in the name of Hertzstein and Morrow. The subject lands are known municipally as 1067 Arundel Lodge Road, Unit 30. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plans and drawings on pages 114 through 116 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish an existing dock and single-story boathouse and to construct a new dock, single-story boathouse, and a garage. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance of this meeting, and 2 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, and Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, and both have stated no objection to the application. The proposed variances are summarized on the screen now. And staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much, Ms. Darling. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
We have the owners listed, but there you go, David Hertzstein.
Yep.
Can you please start by identifying your mailing address, please?
Sure. 1067 Arundel Lodge Road. That's in Townships of Muskoka Lake, P1, P1R2. And sorry, that's unit number 30. So yeah, I don't think I really have a lot to add to it other than we're just replacing the boathouse and are increasing a little bit the setback from where the existing is by a few feet to give some relief to our neighbor. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition
I
to
don't
this
see,
application?
no. We don't see anybody.
Okay, are there questions for the members? Seeing none, Member Bridgman, would you read the resolution, please?
Moved by Member Brown, seconded by Member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that application A-34/23 Herstein and Morrow to construct a new dock and single-story boathouse is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a southerly side yard setback of 7.5 feet for a dock. 2, to permit a maximum cumulative dock with that should be width of 35 feet. 3, to permit a maximum cumulative width of 20 feet. 4, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 11%, 2,665 square feet. And 5, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 11%, 2,225 square feet within 200 feet of the high water mark. That's it.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. And the next application is B4123, and that is Ms. Crowder again.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Next application to be heard is A4123 Borough and MacMillan. The subject lands are known municipally as 1022 Cohen Park Road. I would direct committee's attention, please disregard the civic address at the top of this presentation. That is not correct. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 123 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to remove an existing gazebo, demolish an existing sun deck, and construct a new dwelling addition and shed. The original site plan that you can see in the agenda package has been revised as shown on the screen. During staff's site visit, 2 structures were observed that had not been included on the submitted plans. And I'm going to highlight those on the screen. I'm not sure how well you can see it, so. There was a structure right here that was discovered on site, and then also a structure right here. So the site plan shown on the screen has been amended to reflect those, but was not included in the site plan attached to the agenda package. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and 2 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, and Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, both stating no objection to the application. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be adjourned and recirculated as necessary to include the 2 structures discovered on site. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak?
Yes, we have the applicant here to speak.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Application for this is to make a very tiny cottage slightly larger. There was an omission from the bunkie that was built, which is an under permit bunkie, and also a small woodshed. my information I've received is that our lot coverage now exceeds the permitted amount by Muskoka Lakes. One of the questions I do have is how do I make that woodshed, which I don't need, compliant so that this works? It strictly was built by the previous owner. It was put there when he took down some trees that were dead. We use it for campfire wood. I'm willing to take down the structure. I'm wondering, because it is about 16 feet long and it's piled about that high, which would be 6 feet approximately. Short of having to move all that wood, can I just take the roof, the back wall, and the side walls down, because it's like an open lean-to type, and just leave the actual floor where the wood is sitting on? And I'm quite willing to take it apart and do it that way to be in compliance with the lot permitted coverage.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Chair Edwards.
Yes.
Just to answer your question, if the structure's roof is removed and the walls, then it would not contribute to lot coverage. So this would reduce your overall lot coverage.
And it's my understanding that if that is removed, then we would be in close compliance to what the 8% is, and it would therefore be approved. It was my impression. I'm not asking for an answer to that.
Yeah, so through you, Chair Edwards, if I may.
Go ahead.
Okay. We would need to take a look at a site plan that shows that reflected on it, because there are a number of considerations, including side yard setbacks.
Yep.
And we would need to see the numbers to reflect the overall lot coverage. But that is something you could explore to reduce your lot coverage. Yes.
Can that be explored prior to me taking this down, and with the compliance of me taking it down once we are approved, if I do take it down, as opposed to doing all the work of pulling it apart and then you declining our application?
Through you, Chair Edwards, we do receive applications where site plans note that a structure is to be removed, and then it is included typically as a condition of that approval. So that would not be an abnormal way to approach it.
My wife and I are both quite comfortable taking this structure down, even though it's relatively new. It's not something we necessarily need. We just would like a small cottage to be just a little bit bigger.
Yes, Member Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Just maybe a little bit helpful. The process is we would adjourn this now. Adjourn this now. It has to be recirculated because there were things on your property that weren't there. So you have to let the neighbors understand that. And then you would work with Emily in this case. And yes, it's not unusual to say this will be removed, but then Emily will be able to give you the proper coverage and what needs to go or not after.
Thank you.
So just to help you a little bit.
And speaking of the neighbors, I was presented this morning with two of our neighbors have letters of recommendation. They had no concerns with the applications. I don't know who somebody want like those.
Okay, under the circumstances, committee, I think we should adjourn this and have it recirculated.
Can I ask the speaker to please identify his name and address before we proceed?
Yes.
Sorry. My name is Dwayne Burrow. Co-applicant is Diane 1N McMillan. Our address is 18 Walser Street, WALSER Street in Elora, ELORA, Ontario. N0B1S0.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next application is A4423, and that is Ms. Crowdery.
Chair Edwards, Member Bridgman just has her hand raised.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Chair Edwards, do we not have to vote on that adjournment or not? Or we have to agree to it?
Well, okay, this is a matter of fact, but it was recommended. So all those in favor of adjournment? Okay, this application is adjourned. And the next application is A44, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance A4423 in the names of Chandler and Hubert. The subject lands are known municipally as 1031 Strachan Point Road, Unit 2. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plans on pages 142 and 143 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish an existing dwelling, sleeping cabin, shed, and privy, and to construct a new dwelling with an attached sun deck as shown in the displayed site plan. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 12 days in advance of this meeting, and 2 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, and Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, both stating no objection to the application. Following the circulation of comments to committee, 2 letters of support were received. The first letter of support is from John Crowley and Tricia Saunders, area property owners. The second letter of support is from Roseanne and Dennis Orban, area property owners. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. Due to the irregular shape of the lot and the size of the lot, adhering to all yard requirements is somewhat challenging. However, overall development on the property is being pushed further back from the water than currently exists today. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Yes,
Good morning, Ms. Ledger.
Good morning, Chair Edwards and committee members. I am the agent for the application, Terry Ledger, 167 Medora Street, Port Carling, P0B1J0. And perhaps for efficiencies for the secretary, I'm the agent on the X4 applications, so I won't introduce myself again and again. Sorry, committee. I don't know if the committee is aware, but we've been testing a cloud permit minor variance application process, which has been very efficient, as you can see. That's why they're at the forum. At any rate, this property is very challenging. As you can see, it goes back to a triangle at the back. So we pushed the cottage back as far as we could go because we still had to get a septic system in. So it's behind there as well. So I'm just here to answer any questions you may have. We tried to sort of improve the setbacks from the existing structures that were on the property, and stay within sort of that built environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this? I see we have someone.
Good morning, Chairman. My name is Odette Hubert, and I'm one of the applicants with my wife. I just wanted to acknowledge my presence if you have any questions for me, but Ms. Ledger is able to answer most of them, I'm sure.
Could you give us your address,
Okay.
please, Mr. Hubert?
Yes, it is 121 Coldstream Avenue. It's one word, COLDSEREAM Avenue in Toronto, Ontario. Mary 5 Norman 1 X-ray 7.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? Any questions from the members? I'll ask Member Bridgman to read the resolution, please.
Chair Edwards, just one quick question. Those letters of support that were mentioned, I'm not sure that I saw those. Were they circulated to the committee, or am I the only one who missed those?
Through you, Chair Edwards.
Yes.
The comments were received after circulation of comments to committee. So they came in after the comments were circulated to you. So we can read them in full at your request.
I'm okay with it. I hadn't seen
Yeah.
them, so I just thought that I'm.
Yeah, no, this is why sometimes when stuff comes in late and that, but they were letters of support. So I don't think they have to be read unless you would like them read.
I'm fine.
Okay. Okay, Member Bridgman.
Okay, moved by member Brown, seconded by member Stokes. Be it resolved that application A-44/23, Chandler and Hubert to construct a new dwelling with a sun deck is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 8.8%, 1,024 square feet within 200 feet of the high water mark. 2, to permit a front yard setback of 40.5 feet for a sun deck. 3, to permit a northerly side yard setback of 6.5 feet and a southerly side yard setback of 8.5 feet for a sun deck. And 4, to permit a northerly side yard setback of 10 feet and a southerly side yard setback of 10.5 feet for a dwelling. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision, and the approval shall remain in effect for 3 years. Councillor Edwards?
Okay, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay. The next application is A-4523, and that's Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and good morning, members of committee. We're just going to get the presentation queued up. One moment, please. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-45/23 in the name of McAllister. The subject property is known municipally as 1127 Leonard Lake Road 1. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 167 of your agenda package, and it's also indicated on this slide. The purpose and effect of the application is to construct a dwelling addition and to relocate a shed and a privy. The proposal requires a variance from the maximum permitted lot coverage requirement within 200 feet from the high water mark, being the maximum permitted coverage of roofed buildings and structures within this distance from the high water mark of Leonard Lake. And it also requires a variance from the minimum permitted side yard setback requirement. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance, and 2 submissions have been received. Commission and Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, both stating no objection to the application. Please note that a variance was initially circulated for relief from section 3.4.1E of the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw for construction of a dwelling on an undersized lot. Upon further review, it has been determined that relief from this provision is not needed for the proposal. I have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to recommended conditions as detailed in my report. I have no further comments at this time, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp, and the applicant's agent here. And I have Ms. Ledger in.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, one of my questions was regarding the requirement for the undersized lot. I think Mr. Sharp is taking care of that, so that's excellent. Basically, they just want to add on a screen porch or a Muskoka room addition. So there's an existing porch there, so it's actually 7 feet in addition, just in the front area. If you look at the site plan. Again, another challenging lot, but this one, the triangle is in reverse, but you can see that it's a well-treed lot. The docks are floating, so that's easy enough to meet the condition as well. And I'm here to answer any other questions you might have.
Anyone wishing to speak in support of this application?
I don't see
Anyone wishing to
anybody.
speak in-
No.
Anyone in opposition? No? Okay, other questions for the members? Seeing none, Member Bridgman.
Moved by member Grogan Green, seconded by member Quinn. Be it resolved that application A-45/23 McAllister to construct a dwelling addition to an existing dwelling and to relocate a shed, privy, and trailer to be beyond 200 feet from the high water mark is hereby approved with following variances being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 9%, 1,548 square feet within 200 feet of the high water mark, and 2, to permit a side yard setback of 11.5 feet for a dwelling addition. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision, subject to the following conditions. 1, that an existing shed and privy be relocated beyond 200 feet from the high water mark as intended or removed. 2, that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into along with securities to implement as necessary the enhanced protection policies of the Muskoka official plan, including retention and revegetation of the shoreline buffer. And 3, that the as-built dock be brought into compliance with applicable zoning provisions or removed. And this remains in effect for 3 years. Councillor
Thank
Edwards.
you. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay. Next application is A46 Ross, and that is Ms. Darling.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-46/23 in the name of Ross. The subject lands are known municipally as 1027 Old Bridge Road, unit number 6. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan and drawings on page 186 through 190 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to construct a second-story addition, a porch addition, and an entry addition to the existing one-story dwelling. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, and Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, both stating that no objection to the application. The owner submitted a comment addressing the conditions this morning after comments were circulated to committee, but the agent has stated that they will summarize the comments for everyone. The proposed variances are summarized as shown in the chart. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following conditions: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for plantings to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer, and that a sun shelter not shown on the submitted site plan on the dock, as shown in figure 3 of the report, be removed. That an as-built building identified as a gazebo on the submitted site plan also be removed or brought into compliance with the comprehensive zoning bylaw. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions by committee.
Thank you very much. And the owner or agent? Go ahead, Ms. Laidler.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I believe the owner is also on the call. But I just wanted to speak to some of the conditions. Basically, it's a second-story addition to the cottage with an entry to the rear being added on, and a little bit of a porch area in the front to shade the lower levels. That's the extra lot coverage. So the 3 conditions, the simple one is the sun shelter. Like a lot of cottagers, they don't realize, they consider this a temporary structure, but I have explained it to Mr. Ross, so that there's no issue removing that. The little shed at the back, we've called a gazebo, but it is, it was there when the property was purchased. We haven't been able to prove the date that it was built. Prior to 1987, it would be legal non-compliant, but we haven't been able to do that. You can see it's very small. The owner would like to retain that shed. It's basically used as a shed now. So I'll let the committee discuss that point. And the other was the site plan agreement. I think you can see from the photos, this was the front lawn was a front just lawn when the property was purchased. You can see that the owner has been planting trees. So the additional request for the site plan agreement is an added cost and time, but there are some areas in that front yard that are grass. There's an underground spring right in front of the Muskoka room where he's tried to plant trees, but they won't grow there. So, but the rest of the area you can see has been planted with new trees. So battling beavers and wildlife. That's what's happening there. So I think the property owner is a good steward. We'd ask that you don't impose a site plan agreement, but again, I'll leave that to the committee to discuss. I'm here to answer any other questions you might have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application?
The owner is here. I don't know whether he wants to speak. Mr. Ross,
Okay.
if you want to, did you want to speak? Could you start with your address, please?
My mailing address is PO Box 973, Waterdown, Ontario. LOR2HO.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I don't really have any additional comments to Terry's comments. I provided kind of the background to the vegetation and the planning and the challenges I've had with, in addition to the beavers and deer, is more devastating thing has been white pine blister, which has taken out in the last 3 years, three trees. The stumps are still there. So my plan continues to be, has been since I've got here, to repopulate and revegetate, but there have been challenges to that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And there's no one else to speak on this. So are there any questions from the members? Yes, Member Brisbane.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Just to answer Ms. Ledger's comments about the revegetation, I believe that needs to stay in this, and I would assume that the township will work with you on the timing of this and what's reasonable and what isn't. So that would be my only comment on that, and I don't see keeping that little whatever you want to call it, that isn't actually a gazebo. I don't support keeping that. So those are my comments.
Any other comments? Seeing none? Okay, would you read the resolution, please?
Moved by Member Stokes, seconded by Member Bridgman. Be it resolved that application A-46/23 Ross be to construct a second-story addition, a porch addition, and an entry addition is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 11%, 2,875 square feet, within 200 feet of the high water mark, and 2, to permit a front yard setback of 37 feet at the closest point for dwelling additions. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following conditions. 1, that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title along with securities for plantings to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. 2, that an as-built sun shelter not shown on the submitted site plan be removed. And 3, that an as-built building identified as a gazebo on the submitted plan be removed or brought into compliance with applicable zoning provisions. And this approval shall remain in effect for 3 years. Chair Edwards.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on that? All those in favor? That's carried. And the next application is A-4823, and that is Ms. Darling again.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A48/23 in the name of Slessor. The subject lands are known municipally as 1021 Butterfly Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on pages 202 through 205 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to permit a sun deck addition and stairs. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, and Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, both stating they had no objection to the application. The 3rd comment was from the adjacent neighbor, Richard Lanvier, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, who submitted a letter of support. The proposed variances are summarized as shown. And staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. And the applicant or applicant's agent, I believe it's Ms. Ledger again. Go ahead, Terry.
It is. Thank you, Chair Edwards. So this is a side yard setback. This is a community zoning R1. So at one time, it was a 6-foot side yard setback. And this is actually my fault because I thought it still was a 6-foot side yard setback, which is why you see it built already. So that we're just here to, we just wanted to wrap it around to encompass a side entrance on the cottage addition. So it's the 2 feet that we, or sorry, the 3 feet that we require just to get that entrance as part of it. I'm here to answer any other questions. Thank you. Your mute is on, Chair Edwards.
Sorry about that. I don't know. They keep shutting it off because I don't shut it off. But is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application?
I don't see anybody waiting. No.
Anyone in opposition?
No.
No? Questions from the members? No questions from the members? Would you read it, Member Bridgman?
I have one question, Alan.
Okay. Okay.
It's in relation to the comment on page 195. There's a bullet that refers to the shoreline buffer. It says it can be significantly improved and suggests that if committees considering approval of the application site plan agreement for plantings to revegetate the shoreline buffer can be imposed. This agreement will be registered on title. I just like a little more color on that and like to understand whether any members of the committee have any comments or issues with that statement.
Yes, Member Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. To Member Stokes' point, why wasn't that suggested on this application? I'm just curious and asking that because it sure looks like it could use some revegetation.
Through you, Chair Edwards, and thank you for your question, Member Bridgman and Member Stokes. In this particular instance, the relief that's being applied for is from a side yard setback. The dwelling complies with front yard requirements and has been redeveloped in accordance with those. So I think staff weren't 100% confident or comfortable imposing a condition with respect to revegetation of the front yard, which would be something that would normally be done in the case of reduced front yard setback or increased lot coverage requiring relief from the township's zoning bylaw requirements. In this case, what you have in front of you is a side yard setback compliance issue, and the side yard is quite well vegetated, and staff do not feel that there's a need for plantings within the side yard itself. However, as you know, the committee certainly has the ability to impose conditions that they feel are required. And if committee feels that a site plan agreement to require the revegetation of the front yard as part of this is something that needs to be done. We can certainly add a condition to committee's resolution. Thank you.
I will ask the committee, who would like a site plan agreement added to this? Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3. Anyone else? Member Bridgman, I can't see them all there. I know you are in favor of it. I'm in favor of it.
Maybe we could raise our hands again if we're in favor of it. 1, 2, 3, and if you are 4.
Okay, so site plan agreement.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'll go ahead and amend the resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Chair Edwards, I will read this now. Moved by
Okay,
member
thank you.
Bridgman, seconded by member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that application A/48/23 Slessor to recognize an as-built dock and to construct a new single-story boathouse is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a southerly side yard setback of 12 feet for a sun deck and stairs. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision, subject to the following condition: that a site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title along with securities for the retention and revegetation of the shoreline buffer. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years. I could read that easily, Mr. Sharp. Thank you. Chair Edwards?
Yes. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you, committee, for your time today.
Thank you. And we have one more piece of unfinished business, and that is Ms. Crowder.
So I would just note that Member Brown did leave the room as she announced a conflict of
Okay.
interest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A1723 in the name of Tobias and DeCresh. The subject lands are known municipally as 1013 Fife Avenue. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 212 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to recognize an as-built sun deck. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was originally circulated back in April of 2023. This application was originally adjourned by committee and requested not to return until such time that the applicant and/or agent provide background information on what alternative locations were considered for the as-built sun deck and why the as-built location was selected over these alternative locations. That the applicant and/or agent confirm how the hot tub is currently being drained, how it is proposed to be drained, and if necessary, that the applicant and/or agent and planning staff consult with the township building inspector. And lastly, that consideration be given to relocating the hot tub. Since the time of the original public hearing in April, 8 comments have been received and were circulated to committee prior to this meeting. 7 of these comments were letters of support. 1 of these comments is a letter of objection. Letters of support were received from Andrew and Heather Mitchell, area property owners, Stephen D.S. Ross, area property owner, David Straighton, area property owner, Phil Ziello, area property owner, Mark and Don Fell, area property owners, Jeffrey Hall, area property owner, and Gus Papagiorgio, area property owner. Many of these property owners have stated that they boat by the subject property often and view the sun deck as small in nature, non-invasive, minimally visible, and state that it blends in well with the rocky terrain of this particular piece of shoreline. These letters also express appreciation for the efforts of the supporting studies. A letter of objection was received from Stephen Fauner of Northern Vision Planning on behalf of Don and Karen Lang, abutting property owners. This letter expresses concerns related to the location of the hot tub, stating that the hot tub should be treated as a structure and therefore regulated through the zoning bylaw to comply with setbacks and concerns regarding the disposal of hot tub water, and in particular, concern that the hot tub may be being filtered through the septic system associated with the boathouse and not being drained in accordance with the fish habitat assessment. Following the circulation of comments to committee, an additional letter of objection was received from Stephen Fauner of Northern Vision Planning on behalf of Don and Karen Lang, abutting property owners. Though acknowledging that some matters in their initial objection letter had been addressed, they remain in objection to the application for the following reasons. First, a lack of consideration for alternative locations for the sun deck and hot tub. Second, a lack of improvement over the previous non-compliant sun deck, stating that the township typically seeks improvements when redevelopment of non-complying structures is being considered. Third, the applicability of the township's adopted but not yet approved official plan in this application. Mr. Fauner states that the proponent's planner notes that the adopted but not yet approved official plan does not apply for this application as it is not yet approved. Mr. Fauner disagrees with this statement. Fourth, existing policies within the adopted and approved official plan are similar to the policies within the adopted but not yet approved official plan, which were referenced in the initial letter of objection. Fifth, disposal of hot tub water. The Langs appreciate the submission by Typhoon Hot Tub Service, but note that the recommended actions are only for the winterization process and should be followed anytime the hot tub is drained. Sixth, the opinion that a hot tub is a structure and as such should be regulated by the zoning bylaw and comply with setbacks. And finally, tree cutting and disregard for property lines, more specifically tree removal for the installation of a sports court and encroachment of building materials which have been rectified, but Mr. Fauner notes should not have occurred in the first place. The proposed variance is summarized as shown. Please note that the above noted variance was incorrectly reported in Table 1 of the staff report before you. The values within the proposed and variance columns should be swapped. To clarify, the as-built sun deck is 3.6 feet from the high water mark, and the numerical value of the variance is 36.4 feet. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the following: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to revegetate the shoreline buffer, to implement this and other recommendations of the fish habitat assessment prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, and to implement the hot tub winterization process recommended by Typhoon Hot Tub Service in their letter dated August 4th, 2023. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else here wish to speak on this application?
The agent is here, Mr. Savis.
Okay, who would like to go first?
I'll go first. Thank you. Members of the committee, my name is Savis Veratis of Plan Muskoka, PO Box 5384, Huntsville, Ontario, P1H 2K7. I'm joined here with the landowners, Stella and Adrian as well, who will be giving a brief presentation after mine. So I'll try to keep mine brief so we can move along with this application. First, I'd like to state that I want to thank staff for working with us on this application. It's been a while since it's been going, and I agree with staff's recommendation for the approval of this application. And we have no issue with the condition of the entering into the site plan agreement that's being recommended by staff. So just to make it clear as a member, a little bit of background here, as you know, the application has already been in front of the committee back in April. Just to reiterate what the purpose of this application was for is to recognize an as-built patio or sun deck that's been basically the replacement of a previously existing legal non-complying sun deck that was on the property. The site plan that was shown by staff earlier in their presentation indicates in red where the existing sun deck was previously to the construction of the patio. And basically the result is that the as-built patio, while it could have been built in the exact location and had the right to be built in the exact location as the existing sun deck was on the property, it was shifted slightly to the west and also is about 2.4 inches closer to the water. So this application seems to recognize the existing location of that patio, which was a replacement of that existing sun deck. There was some matters of debate whether or not the existing sun deck was legal or not. Through the preparation of this application, we did research the property and talked to staff about this as well. There is a site-specific bylaw from 2005 that was passed on this property for another matter. On that bylaw, there was a schedule attached that was a survey from a surveyor at the time, which showed the location of that sun deck in that exact location of the property, and it was deemed legal at that time. So based on that information, both staff and I agreed that that structure that was existing on the property was a legal non-compliant structure. So the only reason why I reiterate that is that because that provides the basis of the fact that this was a replacement of a structure that would have been permitted under the bylaw, and it was on that basis that the property owners moved forward. So as staff had mentioned, there was a deferral of the application at the last meeting. One of the main topics for the deferral was to consider alternate locations and review the location chosen and provide justification for that. Now, as you've heard from staff, the location that we ultimately believe is most suitable is the one that we're looking at approving here today. That is because the location chosen was partially, again, where the location of the existing sun deck was, and it also chose an area where it was devoid of vegetation and was already graded in such a way, or already had, for instance, sorry, I shouldn't say graded, already had like a rock shelf that was flat and suitable for the establishment of this patio right on it. So any other locations that we could review along the shoreline buffer area that were further back from the shoreline would have been further up the hill. potentially more visible from the lake. It would also result in the removal of vegetation to provide that patio area. And also, there's some background information there, sorry, there. And there also will be the removal of vegetation involved and potentially grading of the property and removal of rock to establish a flat area to construct in. So we ultimately believe that given the location of the previous sun deck in the very close vicinity overlapping with the proposed location, the fact that we didn't require the removal of vegetation to construct it in that location, the fact that it was a flat shelf of land suitable for development, and the other sites would require further disruption of the property to establish, we concluded that that location would be the most suitable for the patio. In fact, then as your planner has mentioned, there's been 7 letters of support that have been provided to the township, and these are members of the local area that have visually seen the property and seen the existing sun deck on the property, and they have concluded that it's tastefully located there, it's well buffered from view, and these sort of things will be further, I guess, there would be the implementation of a site plan agreement that would provide for additional buffering and additional works on the shoreline that will make this even less visually impacting to anybody boating by on the area. So, and I just want to note too that one of those landowners actually has a direct view of the location from their dock itself, not just from boating by, and they were in support of this application as well. So the other element of the deferral was the hot tub maintenance aspect of it all. As staff have noted, there was a letter provided by the maintenance company that the applicants use to maintain their hot tub. They have indicated no issue with draining the hot tub in accordance with the fish habitat assessment recommendations that have been provided by Riverstone Environmental. That includes primarily the pumping of the water up to the top of the hill rather than draining it directly through into the lake or into the septic system. The applicants don't drain their hot tub into their septic system. And in fact, the point that was raised by the objection to this application about multiple drainage of the hot tub and whether or not it would be done in accordance with the fish habitat assessment, there's all intentions of doing so. There's no intention of draining the hot tub into the septic system in the boathouse or directly into the lake. And through the recommendations of staff to use the site plan agreement to implement such a mitigation measure, we can feel confident that this will have not only be done in accordance with the agreement, but also enforceable as well. So just in terms of the objection, I'm just going to touch on this very briefly before I pass it along. One of the things that me and the applicants have sort of discussed in length is the impact that this proposed patio actually has on the neighboring property owner. Their property is quite a bit bigger, sort of a peninsula shaped piece of property and the shoreline is such that we don't feel that they have a direct view of the proposed patio area. So there's about a 40 to 50 feet of vegetation between the side lot line, the shared side lot line, and the proposed structure and the patio. That vegetation through site plan control can be retained and make sure that it's retained for the foreseeable future. And if it was ever removed by this landowner or any future landowner, it'd be able to be enforced to be replaced. So we feel that combined with the line of sight, it doesn't show that there is a direct impact on this neighboring property owner by this proposal. And so we are a little confused as to their harsh feelings on it. But that said, I disagree that we have not had regard for the policies of the new official plan. And just to make it clear, the test of a minor variance is not strict conformity with any official plan. Is the general intent and purpose is being maintained. Staff and I agree that this application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I agree with the recommendation for the approval on that basis. So just as a final thought, at the time of the circulation of the application in April, we didn't have the tool of site plan control to be able to use any more waterfront properties for such as this. Since that application went forward in April and has come back now, we've had that tool brought back into effect by the provincial government. So this makes the implementation of those recommendations provided in the fish habitat assessment and by staff quite a bit easier to do now. So I think we're in a position where this site plan agreement can be used to provide a level of comfort. And I think, like I said, I agree with staff's recommendation. We have no issue doing so. So I just to conclude, to reiterate, I agree with staff's recommendation, and I'll just pass it on to the property owners to provide a quick word before we move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this? Yes.
If I may.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and members of the committee. We appreciate you allowing us to come back before the committee to address our application. We put a lot of consideration into trying to find a way to appease our neighbors, and as well as accommodate the relocation of the hot tub. Due to the terrain of the property, it's very difficult without causing any more destruction to vegetation for us to do so. So, and due to that reasons, as our planner has spoken, we decided that it was in our best interest to retain it where the property is now. I apologize. It's just a little bit of a touching situation with us. We've been through a lot with this application, and we've really tried to appease, but it just seems like it's been very difficult and challenging to, satisfy people that may not necessarily be able to be satisfied. We don't have a sports court. We have a driveway. My children play ball hockey and basketball in the driveway. There's portable nets that get moved around. We never cut down trees. We also got a letter from our arborist who is certified in the work that he does. I believe that it was put in as part of the application on there, that anything that was removed from the property was deemed unsafe or dead. So we just want to be able to not look like these monsters that we're trying to be portrayed as, and kind of enjoy and try to live in harmony with our neighbors, and hopefully peace can come of this. We tried to satisfy everything as properly as possible. I know that previously in our previous committee meeting, I did make a comment that we have a septic system in our boathouse. That was not to imply that we're draining our hot tub into the septic system. It was just a comment that we have a septic system that sits directly above the water, and sewage ejector, which then pumps to our septic system. We don't go put waste into the lake. So common sense would be that the hot tub would be drained in a professional manner by the maintenance company that we have that looks after it, to dispose of the water within the hot tub as an environmental means. We have watercraft vehicles that sit directly on the water. We don't go spill liquids or fluids from that watercraft into the water. It's just common sense, good practice, good nature people. That's what you do. So if there's any questions from the committee, I'm more than happy to answer them. We really appreciate you taking your time to assist us with this application, and we look forward to moving forward with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application?
Mr. Fauner is here.
Go ahead, Mr. Fauner.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Stephen Fauner, Northern Vision Planning Limited, 109 Meadow Heights Drive, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L 184. Sorry for the voice. I think you and I, Mr. Chair, both have COVID, so we've got some complications to deal with. I'm just going to emphasize just a few points, and I thank staff for circulating my letters to committee members. Firstly, I think the point that I want to raise is alternative locations. I think really, in my opinion, the evaluation really wasn't done. They didn't evaluate any other locations except to say that if they go up the slope, they're going to have to remove some trees. Well, it would be nice to have seen an evaluation of specific locations as to the difficulties that would have presented. And I don't, in my opinion, believe that there really was an evaluation done of alternative locations. And that was a specific request made by committee. The second is that the policies, as I've noted, particularly in my most recent letter, says that there will be improvements made to non-complying situations. And in this case, albeit the deck is relatively small, the front yard setback is not improving. In fact, it's being slightly worse. It's very slight, I must admit, but there's no improvement being shown there, certainly in terms of the setback. And in fact, the deck is being moved to a location that's more visible from the water. The other is maybe on a more minor nature. Both official plans, the current and the updated, both apply. And there's wording that I did put in my letter that indicates that they will apply and do apply to applications. I do believe, in my opinion, that the hot tub is a structure. And given it non-compliance location, it should be located, and it's required, in my opinion, to be located 25 feet back from the high water mark. The fact that it can sit on a deck, yes, a boathouse can also sit on a dock, but you have separate requirements for a boathouse than you do a dock. So, and I think the last thing I'm going to mention is that just again, just a note that, this was brought about by way of a complaint. That's how the municipality knew about this particular application. So it is an application where they're asking for forgiveness after construction. So just wanted to make that point. And I know that committee it's a difficult decision, but anyways, I'm here to answer any further questions if anyone has any questions of me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fawner. We have a rebuttal in that, so go ahead, sir. You had your hand up. You're on mute.
Thank you. Chair Edwards, members of the committee. The complaint that we received on our property was site alterations within 200 feet of the waterfront. We had the pleasure of meeting the bylaw officer on the property when this complaint occurred. Basically, it was a complaint of general nature. There was construction going on the property. We did have a building permit application on the property at that time. The bylaw officer did take the time to go through the complete property and take a look at everything that was being constructed and erected on the property or any site alterations that were being made. The only issue that he had was the sun deck. Everything else was in compliance. There was other items that were measured, setbacks that were looked at and addressed. There was multiple communication between our neighbors, the bylaw officer, and ourselves in regards to what was being done. And none of those items did come to any fruition. Basically, bylaw officer was in compliance, said that we were in compliance with all those matters. It just seems like we have a shotgun approach, just trying to nitpick on everything done on the property. We've had to move our hydro service because when we purchased our property in 2010, there was no registered easement on the property, and our hydro service came to our neighbors. So they gladly communicated with us and told us that, we need to find out a proper way to service our property. We took it upon them to communicate properly. We relocated our hydro service to accommodate and appease our neighbors. I guess back in the day, things were done with a handshake. Nowadays, things are done in a more aggressive nature. Our gas service was running on their property. That was from the previous homeowners when we purchased the property in 2020. We've relocated that gas service. We brought it within our property. Anytime that our neighbors have made mention of anything that was not in compliance, any encroachments, without lieu of a survey, without any confrontation, we agreed that we would remove and pull back whatever's required. It's a big lot. We have a big piece of property, and so do they. There's no need to fight or argue or dispute with our neighbors. We want to be neighborly. We come for peace. We enjoy the community that we're there with, and we want to be able to be gracious with everybody, including our neighbors. Thank you, Chair Edwards.
Okay, thank you. And I will let you speak now.
If possible, may I add to my husband's commentary here? I know it was mentioned that it was brought about through a different complaint. At the same time, the existing sun deck that was there that we made a bit bigger, moved over a bit, it's actually small in nature. We in ourselves did not know that that was an issue. So as soon as it was raised, we took steps to bring it into compliance. We did not know, we were not aware that that was an issue. But once it was raised, we did take steps. As we've taken steps any other time something was raised for us. In the absence of us getting our own surveys, we have always been accommodating. We are not here to fight with our neighbors. We don't want to fight with our neighbors. We've come to the realization there's not much you can do if people want to continue to fight. We are not trying to fight with anyone in the area. We do have 7 letters of support in terms of the visibility of the hot tub, the sun deck. It actually is small in nature. It is not visible unless you're directly in the lake bed in front of our cottage. It's quite clear in the 7 letters of support. Moving it anywhere else would probably make it more visible. I know Mr. Fauner is saying that he doesn't really know in terms of the difficulties. We're on a steep terrain. There's 63 steps to get from our boathouse to our cottage. That's quite an incline. You don't have a level area. So when you get to our cottage, there's not much room. So there's no other place that makes reasonable sense to have a hot tub. And on that incline, I don't know what statistics or what numbers Mr. Fauner wants to see in terms of difficulty. I think when you see a steep incline like that, you know that you can't have a level area and we wouldn't be able to put a hot tub there. So we have considered alternate locations, but there really was none that made reasonable sense. And where you have this flat level area that's devoid of vegetation, it makes the most reasonable sense for it to be there. And in terms of visibility, I think it's evident through the 7 letters of support that are there that in anyone who visits, you will see that it's not very visible unless you are directly in the lake bed in front. It's a small sun deck that only hosts the hot tub on top of it.
Thank you. Okay, are there any questions from the committee? Yes, Member Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I have a few things I want to talk about, if that's okay with you. But the first thing I would like to do is ask Mr. Sharp, in terms of the hot tub and Mr. Fauner's argument that it isn't allowed there, I just want to confirm that there is nothing in our bylaws that says you can't put that hot tub on a sun deck where it is. So can we just clarify that for everybody listening?
Thank you, Chair Bridgman, and I appreciate Mr. Fauner's professional opinion. He has his opinion and we have our opinions, and we always don't agree, but ultimately what it comes down to is the definition of a structure in the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw and the interpretation of that definition. And we've taken the position that this type of hot tub is essentially, a portable feature on a property. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, staff are challenged to make these judgment calls, whether it be, extravagant lawn furniture or, the moose statue that's perched on a rock in the front yard area of this property. Is that a structure? Becomes somewhat difficult. Perhaps that's an overreaching example, but in any event, we've taken the position that this particular hot tub, thank you. This particular hot tub isn't a structure, and it would be permitted on the sun deck so long as the sun deck itself is recognized at a reduced front yard setback through the approval or through the application that you have in front of you. I would note that the former sun deck appears to have had legal non-complying status, so a hot tub would have been permitted on that sun deck as well. There are certain hot tubs in the township that, according to our definition and opinion and interpretation, are structures. They typically tend to, be built into the ground and are permanent features on a property. With respect to, improvements, I think one of the improvements that is being made here is the vegetation in the front yard area that's been recommended to be formalized through a site plan agreement and is recommended by the environmental consultants who have been involved. So I hope that answers your question. Happy to elaborate if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think my next point is that this township often will recognize grandfathered structures and have them move on a property with no problem. So the fact that this is being moved from one location to the other isn't an issue for me in terms of the sun deck. I'm just trying to tell you that. And the 2 inches or 2.6 inches or whatever it is non-relevant to me. The other comment I would have is, and it took me a long time to understand this, in terms of the four rules that are used in terms of minor variances. This is a very minor impact on the shoreline of this property. So I agree with our professional staff's opinion that this is minor in nature, and I support what is being recommended here. I do have one ask of the owners, and that's just in terms of the question of, will the hot tub be drained in the middle of the summer for whatever reason? Not my concern particularly, but I'm wondering if you would agree that if you have to drain the hot tub when it's not being winterized, that you follow the same process that the winterization process follows. And I'm sure you're not going to have an objection to that, but that puts it in writing that you are never going to put this into the water, and it might be helpful. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Through the chair, one time in my past, I used to sell hot tubs and the chemicals, and they can be neutralized very easily to where it is safe to put back into the environment. I think with it being this close to the water and with a plan in place, and I agree with Bridgman's comment about, it probably should be changed every 8 weeks. And if it's going to be properly neutralized and pumped up the hill, I'm in agreement with it. I think that the new platform is done with a rock that it looks to be very native to the area, and it blends very nicely. And I don't have a problem with this application.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee?
Through you, Chair Edwards, it's Mr. Sharp here. I just wanted to quickly elaborate through you with respect to Member Bridgman's comment about the winterization. We could easily change the recommendation that's included on the resolution to strike out winterization and just put hot tub process. And that way it would be absolutely certain that the agreement would be for all times of year. Thank you.
I think that should be in there. I agree with Member Bridgman. Any other comments or questions?
Maybe these are just comments. Why is this going on and off? Okay. One is neighbor comments, nearby landowners. They're not some of the letters of support, for example, I know are people that do not live anywhere near or pretty far away from the applicant's cottage. And I remember an LPAT situation where a decision of committee went to the LPAT, and a member of the MLA spoke, for example, and he was thrown out because he wasn't anywhere near the applicant's cottage. So I personally I can't hold those letters in very much, I can't give them very much weight. That's just an opinion. It doesn't do anything, I think, to strengthen the application. My other comment still relates to the hardscape that was used to put the hot tub on. It doesn't drain, and I think it's not compliant with today's bylaws. I just want to find out from the planners whether it's allowed to put, that kind of patio in. Just curious.
Who
Through
would
you,
like to answer
Chair Edwards.
that? Yes.
So I guess to your first point about the comments, I did look up the locations of all the letters, and we can read I think you were sent the letters of support. A lot of them noted that they boat by the property. So that's sort of why I did mention them, but I can appreciate your opinion for sure. And some of them are relatively close by. But yeah, again, we'll leave it to you to assess the weight of them. But in regard to the surface of the hot tub, it's an interesting situation because the previous existing deck that was there, we're not sure exactly what it was constructed of. I don't know if the owners are able to provide some background on that, but we would prefer to see some drainage course available, and I think that the implementation of some vegetation around that feature may help. But yeah, maybe I would defer to the owner or the agent to let us know if there's any drainage around the feature.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, sir. Oh, you're on mute.
Chair Edwards and members of the committee, the previous structure was constructed of wood. So that's what the reason why it was reconstructed was because of the rot and the decay of the previous unsafe structure. In regards to the structure, it's actually interesting. It's right on bedrock. So it's not permeable directly below that the new base that we put in there, as it's right on bedrock. We do right in front of it have a drainage area where there's hardscape and vegetation in order to allow the permeation of any water running off the flagged mortared in sun deck. But it is on bedrock, so that's why there was no thought or consideration to put to try to create the structure that may be able to be more porous in order to allow drainage. Thank you, Chair Edwards.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Through you, Chair Edwards, if
Yes.
I may, I do have a photo
Yes.
here that shows the hot tub along the portion of shoreline. If you were interested in seeing the bedrock around the hot
Yes,
tub.
I think that would be excellent.
Okay, I'll just share my screen here. And when I was on site, it was noted that it is a pretty rocky terrain. The revegetation plan included within the fish habitat assessment does include some areas that vegetation can go in, but staff can also take a look at where else can be revegetated through the site plan control process.
Okay, thank you. And can we go back to the regular screen, please?
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Member Bridgman, would you read the resolution, please?
Moved by Member Brown, seconded by Member Quinn, be it resolved that application A-17/23, Tobias and DeCressy to permit a sun deck is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a front yard setback of 3.6 feet at the closest point for an as-built sun deck. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer, to implement this and other recommendations of the fish habitat assessment prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc., dated March 2nd, 2023, and to implement the hot tub drainage/winterization process recommended by Typhoon Hot Tub Service in their letter dated August 4th, 2023. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision.
Okay, so we're changing the winterization to all
Drainage
year, right?
/ winterization.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? I can't see there, Member Bridgman, is that
We
everybody?
have
or-
1, 2, 3, we have 4 in favor.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so that is carried. Okay, and we have information items, appeal to the OLT. Who's going to handle that, Mr. Sharp?
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'll keep it brief. I can inform committee that it's August 2023 decision to defeat minor variance application A-38/23 submitted in the name of 1000301-083 Ontario Limited has been appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal by the applicant. The applicant has applied for relief from minimum side yard and maximum boathouse width requirements to recognize an as-built dock and to construct a new single-story boathouse. And I can advise at this time that a hearing date has not yet been scheduled. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments today? If not, I will ask Member Bridgman to read the last resolution ending the meeting.
Okay. Moved by Member Brown, seconded by Member Stokes. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment meeting adjourn at 10:58 a.m.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Member Bridgman, for reading those resolutions. It really helped in that, and hopefully we'll all be back together next month.